Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast. My name is Margot Rayner, and I'm the Marketing Events Manager at the Chartered Banker Institute. Today, we will be discussing the Institute's flagship event, the Young Banker of the Year competition, and answering any questions that the audience might have. I'm also delighted to be joined today by Joanna Finley, who won the competition in 2017. Joanna will share her experience with the competition and what impact it has had on her career. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the online function to submit these, and we will try to answer as many as we can today. Founded in 1987, the Chartered Banker Young Banker of the Year competition aims to showcase tomorrow's leaders in banking. The challenge that's set for our entrants is designed to test their capacity to generate new ideas, drive purposeful innovation, and deliver positive outcomes for customers and communities. We are seeking nominations from amongst our 32,000 members and more widely from across the UK banking industry, including building societies and credit unions. Contestants are asked to develop a proposal in response to the following question. What idea would you implement in your own organisation to improve outcomes for some or all of the following groups: customers, colleagues, counterparties, communities, and the organisation you work for? Your idea should place customers and their needs at the heart of the business and reflect your vision for the future of banking based on sustainable and/or green finance principles. So in the first round of the competition, candidates are asked to submit their proposals to be considered by a panel of judges drawn from the Chartered Banker Institute. Each proposal must be supported by an executive sponsor. An executive sponsor is someone that's indicating they believe that the nominee is an individual of outstanding potential, emerging as a future leader in the UK banking industry and a role model for customer-focused ethical professionalism. By nominating a colleague, the sponsor is also reflecting their belief that the nominee has developed a viable proposal that would improve outcomes for some or all of customers, colleagues, counterparties, communities, and the organisation they work for, and that the proposal could be realistically implemented in their organisation. We do accept self-nominations, however, candidates will need to secure an executive sponsor if they successfully make it through to the semi-final. We're fairly flexible about the interpretation of a sponsor, and looking back at last year, the sponsors tended to be directors, heads of function, or similar. When we revised the competition in 2013, we had imagined that most people would develop a project proposal that was related to their own area of work and expertise. So in that context, the sponsor might be the person who would be in a position to approve the project if it was real, or give it the sort of support and endorsement that it would take to take it to the next level for consideration. Business structures vary so much that it's difficult for us to be prescriptive, and we wouldn't want to be. For some people, it might be a line manager. For others, it could be 2 or 3 steps up the chain. We are looking for a sense check for the organisation that nominees aren't putting forward a completely unviable proposal. The entry form can be downloaded at charteredbanker.com/youngbanker from the attachment tab in today's webcast. Once completed, please email the form to youngbanker@charteredbanker.com. All forms should be accompanied by the nominee's CV and a Word document which outlines the proposal in response to the challenge. This should highlight how the outcomes of your idea will improve the experience of the groups identified. The submission should be no longer than 2 A4 pages, approximately 700 words, with no appendices. You are welcome to use diagrams or infographics to convey your ideas, as long as the proposal does not exceed the maximum of 2 pages. After reviewing all the proposals, a selection of the best candidates will then be invited to discuss their proposal via Skype with an Institute judge. Following this process, feedback will be given to the entrants, and 8 entrants will be selected to present their idea at the live semi-finals. There are 2 live semi-finals. One is the 12th of June in Birmingham, and the last is the 26th of June in Edinburgh. Semi-finalists are invited to present their proposal to a panel of judges. Each semi-finalist will have 8 minutes to present, followed by questions from the judges, and the whole presentation will take about 15 minutes. Semi-finalists will then need to prepare a PowerPoint to support their presentation. 4 finalists will be selected by the judges from the 2 semi-finals, so 2 from Birmingham and 2 from Edinburgh, to present their proposal at the live final in London on the 10th of September at the prestigious Mansion House. The finalists will receive feedback on their semi-final presentation from our judges and have the chance to develop their proposal further. In September, the finalists will present their idea before an invited audience of senior bankers, regulators and others, with the winner chosen by an illustrious panel of judges. That goes over the process and the timeline of the competition. I'm now delighted to introduce Joanna Finley from Virgin Money, who was our 2017 Young Banker of the Year. Thank you so much for joining us, Joanna.
Hi, Margot. Hi, everyone. Hi.
The first question that I've got for you today is, how did you come up with your idea?
Yeah, sure. So, firstly, I just want to say well done to everyone for, putting your names forward or taking an interest in this, because I think it's a really brilliant thing to want to change the industry from within. So, well done to you all. So, how I came up with my idea. The key thing is that I have cared about financial inclusion for a long time, and I suppose I was already having ideas for things that we could do differently within the industry, or that we could do differently at the bank that I work for. And in my case, I was doing that before I heard about the competition. The competition gave me a different lens to look at that work through, because it gave me a framework in which to think, okay, hang on, if I stop just thinking about what we could do as a bank, but actually what would it look like to drive change at an industry level. It changed the way I asked the questions, and it also gave me a time frame to work within. If you're like me and you work faster when you're working towards deadlines, this competition is really good for helping you hone what your ideas might be. So I was already asking a lot of questions about people's experience of being financially excluded and how we're letting them down. But I then started asking questions of these people and of the experts already helping them. So that helped me to develop an idea that I thought I could feasibly deliver within 6 months of the competition. I suppose a key thing is that a good idea won't be easily found. So if you've heard about the competition and then you're sort of sitting there thinking, right, now I need an idea, you won't find an idea at your desk, or at least you won't find a good one. I'd be astonished if you did, because you sort of need to talk to the people you're trying to help and the people who are already trying to help them. And I always think of ideas like constellations. So if you think about every idea that's already out there, you need to find out what's already been tried and hasn't worked, and then the space between those ideas is where the treasure is. You don't go and dig for treasure where someone's already digging, because you won't find any. But I've just tried to challenge myself to keep it really simple and feasible, because as Margot said, you need to implement this, or at least be on a journey to implementing it, and you need a senior person to say, yeah, this person, you've got the credibility to do this. So the source of your inspiration will vary, because the things that we're passionate about will vary. So I wouldn't say everyone, go and talk to previously homeless people and try to be inspired about financial inclusion, but I would look within yourself to find the source of inspiration, and then go and find out about people's experience, and that's where you will find a brilliant idea, I'm sure.
Great, thank you. So on that note, you mentioned the kind of senior person to support the idea. How did you go around securing an executive sponsor?
Yeah, so I think that was made quite easy for me, because it was the person who told me about the competition offered to sponsor me. So I think I probably had an easy ride on that one. So it was someone who's a CBI member at Virgin Money who told me about it and said that they thought I had the potential to represent the company in it, and the way that we both saw it was an opportunity to represent my company and to speak up for people who I cared a lot about. A secondary thing was that actually, if if any of you have seen the footage from the finals 2 years ago, you'll have seen on my face I didn't expect to win. That hadn't been my motivation for going through it, but we both agreed that it was a good opportunity for me to stretch my thinking and my personal capability, and to talk to more people about what I cared about. So I had an easy ride, but I'm currently helping others to identify sponsors for their entrants this year, and what we've said is, look within your own area. If your idea does relate to what you do as a job already, look within your own area, talk to people. You need to find someone who believes in you and believes in your idea, and also preferably someone who's going to be good on camera, because if you get to the finals, they'll be videoed as part of your show reel
Yep.
before you speak, so it's preferable that they don't look like a rabbit in the headlights when they get on camera. If your idea is like mine, a little bit separate to what your day job was at the time, then you might look for other people who would have an interest or passion in this around your organisation, because I wouldn't stick too rigidly to how senior someone is, or you'd think that they have to be in your reporting line. They just need to believe in you, believe that you have the credibility to drive change, and to believe in your idea. So that's what I'd suggest.
That's great. Did you have a kind of set way of managing that relationship? Did you meet on a monthly basis? How did you kind of establish kind of working towards the final once you were in that position?
Yeah, we probably could have been more structured about it, truth be told. We were based in different locations, so it was quite ad hoc that we caught up face to face. But, we emailed about things, and when I was going each round, I chose to update my written proposal. So you'll know that you're going to submit one by the 8th of April if you choose to enter. And then, as Margot said, there's a telephone or a Skype round. So I would call that the quarterfinals, and then you've got live semi and finals. And in each case, you have the opportunity to resubmit your written proposal. So I updated mine every round, and every time I'd updated it, I shared it with Andrew, who is my sponsor, just to check it, to get his stretch and challenge on it, really, to make sure I was pushing myself without becoming unrealistic. So I would suggest that. I mean, this year for the people I'm supporting going through it, we're suggesting actually that they try and have a half an hour catch up every week to keep the momentum up and to welcome challenge and stretch on what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the next question I've got for you is, what was it like taking part of the competition?
It's good that you're asking me 2 years afterwards when I have the benefit of 2020 hindsight. I found it hard work, I'll just be honest, right? If you are doing this in addition to your day job, you have to be really committed to it, which is why I would say you need to be clear on what motivates you. I was motivated to do it because I saw an opportunity to help people who are excluded from the system. I'm not saying that any other motivation is wrong. Some people are motivated to do it just for the personal development. Some people are motivated to do it to gain more visibility in their organisation. There are lots of different reasons for doing it, but your motivation is going to have to get you through doing extra work. Like, let's be honest. There's written proposals to write. If you get to the semis and finals, you're going to be giving an 8-minute presentation that needs to go through who you're trying to help, what solutions exist and don't work, how your solution works, from, going through all the risks and how you're going to overcome them and your route to delivery. So there's quite a lot of detail in there. You can't really wing it. You might be excellent at public speaking, but you've only got 8 minutes. And if you go over 8 minutes, you get marks deducted. So you're going to want to be pretty slick on the day. So you'll need to make time to both write and then practice. I was lucky because colleagues supported me in practicing my talk, but that took their time as well, so we were having to book in sessions. But that was brilliant for me because I got their feedback on what made sense, or where, on first hearing something that I was saying didn't quite make sense or wasn't as powerful as it could be. To get their feedback was invaluable. The Q&A bit, I'll be honest, was the scariest bit of the competition for me. I was so afraid that I would open my mouth and nothing would come out, even though I'm rarely short of words. So again, having practice of that was, in hindsight, I can see the most valuable thing to me, probably, to have experience of people quizzing me on the idea and about my capability to deliver it, so that I was then clear on the day. So yeah, it's hard work, but it really broadened my perspective. As I said before, I was just thinking about the people's need and how we as a bank could try and help them. But if you lift your thinking to how the whole industry can help, it really changes your perspective. And I think it's brilliant that the Chartered Banker do this, because it brings people together from all the different banks to hear each other's ideas and hopefully to think more collaboratively, like we are one industry, and sure, we are individual businesses and competitors within that, but some problems need fixing together, and financial inclusion's one of them. So hope that answers the question.
It does. I think you gave some great advice there about having kind of colleagues give you questions. Because I think candidates can prepare their own presentation and know that inside out. But unless you've had somebody, come up with the questions that might potentially be asked by the judges, I think kind of having that prepared in advance, or at least an experience of somebody asking you those questions is really valuable.
Yeah, and I went to the semi-finals and finals the year I did it, obviously, and then I went last year, and some people can deliver a really strong presentation, but then not be as strong in answering the questions, either because they don't have as much market and industry knowledge. I mean, the panel can ask you questions on whatever they want. You don't see the questions in advance, so you need to understand the regulations, you need to understand the technical considerations, you need to understand the landscape of innovation generally, because, so for example, mine's about financial inclusion and was a really quite simple paper-based process to try and help previously homeless people get bank accounts. But I was asked about tech. They said, well, how could technology enable this? And luckily I'd thought about it, right? But you can, by talking to more people, you can get more of a range of views on what might be of interest to the judges. And also, you're going to know who the judges are in advance, so research them and think what might be of interest to these judges. You can't really over-prepare for the Q&A.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Thank you. So what skills do you think that you developed by taking part in the full process of the competition?
Yeah, so I guess we've covered about presentation skills and Q&A skills. To me, one of the biggest ones, it's maybe not a skill, but just something I needed to develop, was self-belief around these things. So it's one thing to be passionate about a cause and to have ideas, but going through something like this and really testing your mettle helps you believe more that you are capable of driving change. So I think that's something really valuable that I gained from it. Pitching. So here's an interesting thing. I think sometimes when people first hear about the competition, they might think that you're going to pitch your idea and someone else is going to deliver it. But by pitching, I mean you might need to win internal help. So driving change doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself, but you'll need to pitch to people, probably pull in favours, unless you are lucky enough to have some budget behind your idea. And so learning to keep things simple so that people quickly get what it is that you're asking for, and learning to persuade people with your vision for how it would create a better sector. They're all skills you can develop. And, keeping it, really do keep it simple, because then you have the best hope of engaging as broad an audience as possible around your vision. So, yeah, presentation skills, Q&A, self-belief, pitching, and then really refining an idea and keeping it simple and realistic. They were the skills that I developed doing it. And, well, actually, networking, in hindsight, I can see I learned that, because you've got live semi-finals and finals where there's lots of people across the industry, and particularly once you've been on the platform and said what's close to your heart, you discover that other people there are too. And so I think it's been brilliant to realise the power in connecting with other people in the same industry who care about the same things as you and want to support you in doing that, or just want to see how you can work together. So networking is probably another skill I didn't realise I was developing at the time.
Yeah, and it's fun. Some feedback we've got as well from contestants before is that it's really helped to raise their profile in their own organisation, and then, like you said, in the wider industry. And if you are lucky enough to get through to the semi-final and the final, then that's kind of 300 people from across the wider industry that you're getting a chance to kind of present in front of and network with.
It's actually that kept me going. Like on weekends where I was saying, actually I'm not going to go and do that fun thing that I'd love to be doing on Saturday, because instead I'm going to practice my speech. What kept me going was the idea that there would be potentially 300 people that would hear my vision for how the sector would look if people were not excluded from banking, and even just a handful of them, if we got behind the same vision, like we could really change the world. So that's what kept me going.
That's a good motivation. So on that, how do you think that the competition helped your career? I mean, it's obviously something that you've been extremely passionate about for a while, but taking part in the competition, have you seen an impact?
Yeah, so I think some people who go through the competition, this is part of a trajectory to getting a promotion. I know that some other people who've been finalists in past years have been able to say, even within a year afterwards, oh yeah, I've had this promotion, and I would directly attribute it to being part of this the competition. For me, it's not been like that, but I've been honest with you all that I guess my motivation was to raise visibility of homeless people and of their plight in trying to get a bank account, and not necessarily put the spotlight on myself. But that said, yeah, it does raise your visibility. You know, once your face has been on the intranet and people know that you're the Young Banker of the Year, yeah, people do recognise you, which can be nice at times. Although I quickly shake off the young part of Young Banker if I'm going to try and progress anymore. I should say I'm 34. So yeah, as you say, my passion for financial inclusion pre-existed the competition and has been sustained now. But I guess what it's done in terms of my career is it's made me more certain that that is where I can add greatest value within my own organisation and externally. So I am probably more focused and more determined to make a difference now, having been through that process of pitching and refining and, you know, hearing external feedback. Hearing the judges' feedback is so helpful, because sometimes you exist within the bubble of your own bank or even just your own team, and you might know your capability there, but to get feedback from industry experts on your credibility and your capability to drive your ideas forward is just invaluable. So, and going back to the point about my self-belief, you know, I know now that the greatest impact that I could have would be to drive this sort of stuff forward. It doesn't mean it's my job. It's still not my job to do that, but maybe it will be one day. But yeah, it's raised my visibility, and I would say, you know, in two key ways, my network has grown, and I now have a better idea about how I can have impact beyond the walls that I sit in. So one has been introductions via the Chartered Banker Institute. So through them, I've been connected with other people that have an interest in aspects relating to financial inclusion, and so I can share what I know, and then we, you know, build collaboration on something that should never be a point of competition in my eyes. You know, so I was talking to someone from another bank about that in relation to ex-offenders just recently. So I'm really glad to be able to do that. And then the other thing is that having a title, or even, you know, even being able to say, you know, I was a quarter-finalist or a semi-finalist in the Young Banker of the Year, gives senior people a way to introduce you, that gives you credibility, that opens doors, so that, you know, when you start to speak, people then know that you have credibility because of what you know and do, but in the first place it gives them a way to introduce you, you know. And so for me, that's enabled me to talk to Big Issue Invest, who obviously work with a lot of homeless people. They hadn't been aware of the reasons for, you know, barriers to banking as much as they do now, because we're talking now. But the introduction came because someone senior here was able to say, oh yes, Young Banker, you should talk to her, she knows about financial inclusion. So it gives people a reason to introduce you. So I would say, in terms of career, for me, it's not directly impacted a promotion, but it has given me a clearer lens through which to see my career, to know what motivates me, and to give other people opportunities to support me by broadening my network around that. So yeah, that would be it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today.
My pleasure.
We've got a couple of questions that have come through from the audience. The first one is, can the proposal involve the Chartered Banker Institute? The short answer is no, it shouldn't involve the Institute in any capacity. The next one that we've got is, I don't live in the UK, can I apply? So we don't discourage it, but we want to make applicants kind of aware of the challenges that they might face. So they might find it challenging to take part, as they need to meet the criteria, which includes working for a UK deposit-taking or lending institution, and being able to attend a semi-final and final in the UK, and then being able to participate with their sponsor in filming in the UK, and having to make their own travel arrangements. So just as long as applicants are kind of aware of that full process. The next question is there an age limit? So there's not an age limit, but individuals that are applying just have to have worked for less than 15 years in the banking industry. So that's what we mean by young. It's young in terms of length and time in the industry, not age. We have another one here, which is, do you need to completed an institute qualification to take part? So nominees are not required to have completed one of our qualifications. It's not required for participants to be members of the institute either. And then the last one we've got here is, does the business idea need to be something which is implemented only within my organisation, or can it be an idea that can be implemented by the banking industry, for example, banks, regulators, government? So there's no absolute rules about this. We had envisaged that being something of a smaller scale that could potentially be implemented by an entrant, but that doesn't mean it couldn't play into a larger vision. So suppose it was an idea to improve the working relationship with the department and the regulator. If it proved effective, then the second stage of that might be to kind of roll it out across the business until the organisation, and there could then be potential for it to be picked up and kind of replicated across the industry. However, it would need to start at a scale where the nominee could kind of realistically put a plan together about the feasibility and challenges and be the person to start it off itself. One of our entrants last year had a proposal around digital transformation of their organisation, so the bigger approach is viable. However, that entrant's strength lay in understanding how one or two quite focused changes could make a big impact. And then some felt that this was kind of slightly lost in trying to create too broad a vision. The whole idea behind the competition is to allow people to come up with an idea that demonstrates how their own expertise and experience and interests can make a difference to certain groups and perhaps make an impact on the wider industry. But it has to be, credible enough to be implemented in the short term. So I would suggest the smaller scale approach, but don't rule out the bigger vision. You just have to make sure that you've got a good case. And, like Joanna's mentioned throughout, if you're going to be, challenged on the idea, that you've kind of thought of all of the challenges and kind of beyond your area of expertise and experience. Would you say, does that all seem fair? That kind of touches on what you were saying earlier, Joanna.
Yeah, absolutely. I have actually developed a motto through the when I did the competition, which I've shared with others who I've coached on having ideas since, which is dream big but start somewhere. So you have to dream big because if you think about the role of the CBI and the values of people who you'd want to be leading our industry, they would dream big. They would dream big for how banks could improve society. They would dream big for how we could change the narrative of how the press see bankers. But you have to start somewhere because otherwise it will only be a dream. And if you want to prove your integrity and your credibility and your professionalism, then you will start with something where you can prove that this can be done, because sometimes people, a lot of people, particularly if you think we live, we work in an industry with some really analytical people, analytical and logical and, often number-loving people. So if you can do something where the success of it can be measured and where you can prove that it can be done, you'll then win the minds and hearts of people who could make it happen for big, yeah? So I would dream big and then start somewhere and start small within your own organisation, but always have a mind to the whole of the sector because the best ideas are scalable.
Thank you. We've actually got a question that's come through for you. One of the audience members wants to know, what did you find the most challenging in taking part in the competition?
Probably time management. As I say, if it's not, if this is in addition to your day job, you will have to find the time to do it and to be motivated about it. The Q&A is the bit that I had to prep most for. Yeah, so if you, like me, are going to try and make progress between every round, obviously you're going to have to do work to try and progress your project. So that is an amount of extra work that you're going to do each week. But the most intense work that I did was around the Q&A, because you just don't know what the questions are going to be that you're going to be asked. You know who's going to ask them. You know what stimulus they're going to have for it because you've given them the written paper and you're saying the presentation that precedes it. So that's what's going to inspire their questions. That they could ask you it on anything. So the more time that you can spend practicing your answers, the more likely it is that you will say something succinct and impactful in the minute that you have to answer. So yeah, that for me was the hardest point. But depending on what your strengths are and the things that you want to improve in, you might find a different aspect to be the hardest. If you're someone who gets nervous stood on stage, then you will want to create opportunities within your organisation or even externally to try and get practice at standing on the stage and delivering in a really confident way. I would hope that the hardest bit wouldn't be trying to progress your idea, because that's the bit you're going to be most passionate about. But as I say, everyone's different. You might face some horrific hurdles in trying to develop yours, depending on what scale you go for. But if you're passionate about the thing that you're trying to do, then I would say it's worth it. And I would say nothing really worthwhile is ever achieved easily. So I would embrace the things that you find hard.
Absolutely. So that's all we have time for today. So thank you so much, Joanna, for taking part in today's webcast. It's been brilliant to have you on.
I should say to people, I'm on LinkedIn, so if you want to find me, it's Joanna Finley, Finlay. So if you did have any questions afterwards, I'm sure you can contact the CBI, but if it was something about my experience, you're more than welcome to contact me on there as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So we can happily answer any further questions that you may have. So on Twitter @charteredbanker, or via email at youngbanker@charteredbanker.com. Just to remind the audience that the 2019 brochure and the application form are attached to the webcast today, as is the link to the Young Banker webpage. So I hope we've provided you with the information you need in order to apply. And if you do have any other questions, then please do get in touch. So thank you again to Joanna and to the audience for joining us today.
Thank you.